Hi everyone, it's John from What Up, and welcome back to another video. Now this is a Wheel of Time news roundup, and if you're new to the channel, you're probably asking yourself, what the heck is a Wheel of Time news roundup? Well, it's where I take all the little tidbits of Wheel of Time news that have gone on in the last few weeks that maybe quite weren't big enough to warrant their own videos, and then I, cut them all up and I cram them all into one video so I still get to talk about it, because let's face it, that's why I do this. I really do like to talk, and you folks still get to listen to some Wheel of Time news that maybe, isn't super long or would have its own video. So what's in today's video? Well, we're talking about an interview that Rosamund Pike gave to Vogue, where there is a smidge of Wheel of Time mentioned. We're going to talk about an interview that Alvaro Morte gave to Esquire. Now this one has a lot more Wheel of Time news in it, and it has some insight into his character and how he's going to be playing Logain, which is pretty exciting because let's face it, it's one of the characters that I've said multiple times I'm really happy they're expanding. Then we're going to talk a bit about Season 3. Yes, I know they haven't finished filming Season 1 yet. They're probably going to pick that back up in April and finish by the end of May. I've been told they're almost probably going to finish by the end of May filming Season 1. But Wotseries.com recently did an article about an interview that was done where Season 3 was mentioned and some characters' roles were expanded in that. So we're going to talk a bit about that because let's face it, it's never too early to talk about later seasons of Wheel of Time because I just like to talk. Last thing we'll talk about today is some speculation. Now, this is for What Wednesday, Wheel of Time Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, the first Wednesday of March. Now, normally, What on Prime gives us a little bit of news once a month. It's generally on the first Wednesday of every month, and there's been a whole lot of speculation of what this next one could be, and if we take what the last few have been, well, I'm going to show you some images and some teases some people have given us, and I think we can pretty much guess what we're going to get on Wednesday, and we're going to talk about that then. So, before we get into any of this, spoiler warning. In this video, I will be talking about Wheel of Time news. There is a section of the video where I will mention and talk about Season 3. So, if you haven't read up to and including the end of The Shadow Rising, yes, that's book 4 of Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time, be forewarned, I may spoil some things from that book, character arcs, plot points, if you haven't already read it. Now, don't worry, I will give you another little spoiler warning before that happens, so until then, feel free to enjoy a spoiler-free video. Alright, with that being said, let's get on to the video. Alright, up first is an interview Rosamund Pike did with Vogue. Now, I've linked the original interview down below in the description box if you folks want to read it. However, there is only a smidge of it that actually has anything to do with the Wheel of Time, and I'm going to read that here, so there's that. Now, during this interview, they did ask her this question. I'm going to read the question and answer verbatim, just so I don't mess anything up, and I have terrible memory, as you all know. So, up next, we'll see you in the fantasy series The Wheel of Time. How much can you tell us? And Rosamund Pike responds, "It's a world that I can't wait for people to see, one where women hold the power and create a new status quo. There's real diversity in it, and it's a show that I hope everyone will respond to." Now, that's pretty much all she talks about. They go on to talk about filming in Prague and how it is with her and her partner in Prague, away from, where they grew up in the UK and whatnot, and how that is during quarantine and lockdown. Not much that actually relates to the show, though. But what I'm really interested in is we're starting to see more and more Wheel of Time pop up here and there in mainstream media. So we see Vogue talk about it a little bit. We see Esquire, as we're going to see here in a second with Alvaro Morte's interview. We've seen Deadline talk about it quite a bit. And we're seeing a lot of the other, pseudo-media outlets that you see on Facebook and different websites and stuff talk about it. So it's no longer just the community. So it's not just people like myself or Matt Hatch from the Dusty Wheel or Wotseries.com. Any of those websites, Dragon Mount, it's now gone beyond that, which is really interesting to see because this means that we're probably going to start seeing actual promotional materials sooner or later, and I'm going to say probably sooner, because they start talking about the show and ramping things up usually a few months prior to release. So I've said it before, I think we're probably going to see a release this fall. Now, Black Friday is my guess. I've had a few people hint at that to me, but I'm not entirely sure. I would really like to see it this year. I guess it depends on how filming goes in April and May and how well post-production goes and how well the dubbing and everything else that goes afterwards. But if that's the case, we're going to see it this year. We're going to start seeing other major publications start asking these actors and actresses about it during their interviews more and more often until we get interviews just specifically about this. Then we'll see a real teaser, then we'll see a trailer, and then we'll see a marketing blitz where we see a lot of high-res images of the cast and whatnot on set, which I'm really excited to see. Now, we've seen the same thing with The Witcher and Game of Thrones when they first came out, and Wheel of Time so far seems to be sort of emulating that part of it. Now, I will let you know that everything they've been doing for us as far as Wheel of Time Wednesday, interacting with us on Twitter and Instagram, is not normal. It is not normal for a television show or, anything like this to do this with the fans prior to having things ready for release. So we've been very lucky so far, but I think we're going to start seeing a whole lot more Wheel of Time very soon. All right, let's get on to that interview that Alvaro Morte gave with Esquire. Spoiler warning. From this point on in the video, I did warn you that there's going to be some spoilers, so if you haven't read up to at least including The Shadow Rising, be forewarned, I am going to spoil some major plot points and character arcs for you. All right, so the first thing we'll talk about that is spoilers is that interview with Alvaro Morte. He did an interview with Esquire, and he kind of let go on some stuff that maybe he shouldn't have, or maybe it's a mistranslation, I don't know, because the original interview wasn't done in English and it had to be translated, so there are some things that may be a little hinky, but we're going to get through it here, and we're going to discuss what he said. So I'm going to read the interview out here, mainly because I have a terrible memory, like I said. So Alvaro Morte says, with this role, I had a feeling of great responsibility towards the people who love the series so much. That to me is really good to hear. I have tried to make my own version because I think that it is the responsibility that the actors have to contribute something creative to the character. When they call me to tell me that I'm inside, they also tell me I will start recording in 2 weeks, so I didn't even have time to read the books. So I think that's a mistranslation. I think they called him and let him know he had the role, and he was filming in 2 weeks, and he hadn't read the books yet. Not a huge surprise. A number of the actors and actresses on set had never even really heard of the books prior to auditioning and getting roles for the show. Some of them started reading while they were filming, and others started reading after they got home from filming. So it's not a big shock that he hadn't read the books before. They are a lot, and this character appears from the third, but Logain had to be done. So I was talking to the showrunner and the directors, and we tried to put together something special to give my personal touch. When you define this character in the saga, he seems fresh out of the Matrix, always dressed in black and with his black hair. An elegant and serious guy, and I wanted to break it a bit by investigating the human part that we could rescue. At the same time, because of what he has to execute within the series, he allowed to do something very theatrical. He is a character that, despite the naturalism that he has in his reactions, in his feelings, and what moves him inside, in his execution is pompous. He continually acts like doing a ritual, which allowed me to investigate the more theatrical part, especially when he is interacting with other characters or when he has more lonely moments with himself where he hints that he may be pretending. And from that point on, he seemed like a very cool thing to work with. Hopefully the fans like it. That's pretty cool to hear from Alvaro Morte. It shows that he's invested in the character and really does care that we like Logain, his portrayal of Logain. What I liked here, though, and this is why I gave you the spoiler warning before this section, is we're going to get to see Logain prior to his stilling. So we get to see him probably during the battle. We probably get to see scenes of him where he proclaims himself and has his big fights. We get to see where he's captured, and then we get to see where he's taken, to trial. That's all stuff we're going to see pretty much for sure in the series that Rafe the showrunner has hinted at, that set pictures and slip-ups and whatnot have all hinted at that we're going to see, which is really, really cool. Now, what gets me is he's saying that the character is pompous. He acts like he's doing a ritual, and all these things around other people. Now, in the book series, as you know, we only really get to see Logain after he's stilled. So he's not really that pompous then. Not really. I mean, he's lost pretty much everything. So prior to that is probably what he's talking about, because these are the scenes that he would have filmed, and we get to see him as the nobleman he is, as, full of himself and full of power, which I think is pretty exciting. The other thing he talks about is we get to see scenes of him when he's alone and when he's not so sure of himself and he thinks he may be pretending. So this says to me that maybe, just maybe, perhaps, we will get to see the whole setup, why he proclaims himself Dragon Reborn. Not because he thinks he is, but because people are forcing him into it. We may get to see all of that early, which could paint a major section of the Ajas, the Red Aja in particular, as being maybe, if not evil, very manipulative and very, heinous. I mean, that's pretty cool to me. I'd love to see that stuff play out on the screen. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Are we going to see scenes where the Red Aja actually talks to him and, prods him and pushes him towards becoming the Dragon Reborn? We get to see him pompous and full of himself and then, kind of hanging out by himself go, am I really the Dragon Reborn? I'm not really fulfilling any prophecies here. What's going on here? I hope we get to see that stuff. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. All right, now we're going to get into the next spoiler-ish section here. So again, if you haven't read the books up to and including The Shadow Rising, be forewarned, I'm going to ruin some major plot points and character arcs again in this next little section of news. All right, so in this interview with The Times, Lolita Chakrabarty does talk just a smidge about Wheel of Time, and it gives us some speculation to where they're going to go with pacing. Now, the original wotseries.com article is linked in the description box down below, so go click that and follow them for all your printed Wheel of Time news. You want to read everything there, bookmark them. They always have a lot of really great insights there. And then come back here to watch the news, of course. So there's that. All right, so in this article, basically what it is Lolita Chakrabarty hints that she has a larger recurring role in Season 3 of the Wheel of Time. She only has a small role in Season 1, but comes back for Season 3. Now, as we all know, that if they follow the books even slightly, Marin Alvaro, which is the character that Lolita is playing, really doesn't have any screen time at all until at least The Shadow Rising, which is the 4th book in the Wheel of Time. Now, we do know that pretty much for sure most of Season 1 is going to cover the Eye of the World and world building. That's what they're going to be doing. There's going to be some plots and elements from The Great Hunt and even The Dragon Reborn probably integrated into that just to build the world in a way that the viewers will understand it, and it's not just the people reading the books watching it. And there's been a lot of debate on what Season 2 is going to entail. Now, we do know that Season 2 is going to probably entail a good portion of The Great Hunt, but now that I'm thinking about it, it may also have parts of The Dragon Reborn in it, because if she's talking Season 3, which is basically what the wotseries.com article speculated, that we're probably going to see at least parts of The Shadow Rising, where Perrin returns to the Two Rivers and they fight the Trollocs and the White Cloaks in Season 3. So that means that we're going to do at least partial book and a half, maybe 2 books per season, pretty much the whole way through, which I like, and it does leave time for different pacing at different seasons. So Season 1 may be just mainly the Eye of the World, a little bit of the Great Hunt, some other world building. Season 2 might just be pretty much the Great Hunt. Season 3 might be a mix of the Shadow Rising and the Dragon Reborn. And I'm saying this mainly because there's a lot of intertwinement among the different types of stories and storylines and plot lines that go through those books, where they can just take one and run with it for a bit. But they're not going to do like we've seen in the books, and I'm almost sure of this, where we're going to have a full season of just Perrin, or a full season of just Matt, or a full season of just Rand, where some other characters are just missing completely from the books. I know back when the books were coming out and I had to wait for them and pre-order them and whatnot, you get a book and you're very excited because you're really invested in a certain character, and you read that book and he or she is not even in that book at all, and it's a little disappointing. I am sure the show's not going to do that, so I think they're going to pace the storylines in such a way that we're going to see everyone pretty much all the time, that we can, at least anyway. We're not going to go big seasons or big swaths of time without someone. So this does give us a hint about the pacing. So we're probably going to see at least some of the Shadow Rising in Season 3, which makes me pretty excited. This bodes well for a very long, and we're talking like 8 years plus, showtime for this show, which I'm super happy with. So there's that. All right, speaking of all of that, Amazon Prime has given us some hints on what we can expect for Wheel of Time Wednesday. We're going to talk about those right now. All right, so for those of you who already know this, it won't be a big shock, but Wheel of Time on Prime is Amazon Prime's Twitter account for Wheel of Time. So if you don't have a Twitter account, I'm encouraging you right now to go make a Twitter account, follow them, and of course follow me as well. The links to both our Twitters are in the description box down below. And why am I telling you to follow Wheel of Time on Prime? Well, essentially, it's pretty much the only avenue they have to interact with the fandom. So any news that comes out, any casting announcements, any set pictures, and anything pretty much at all, anything they want to say comes out on Twitter. They don't interact pretty much anywhere else. I mean, a little bit on Instagram, but not much. Mostly it's just on Twitter. So if you don't have a Twitter account, you are missing out a little bit. So that being said, for those of you who have Twitter, you've probably already seen all this. But for those of you who are new to the channel or don't have Twitter, last October, we saw our very first real teaser for the show, and it was a little bit of behind the scenes and how they made Tam's sword. So some concept art, a little bit of animation, showed the sword, the prop itself, and it was really neat. They followed that up about a month later with Tom's guitar. Now, I know some of you are saying, well, Tom doesn't have a guitar in the books. Well, no, he doesn't, but they did change that. It's one of the things they changed for the show, one of the things we know they've changed. And they showed us a concept art, pretty much the exact same format. A script, concept art, computer animation of how they built the guitar itself on set. That's what they've shown. So that was 2 things in a row. The third thing we got was not too long ago, and that was Matt's dagger. So it was probably the night before I had asked Wheel of Time on Prime if we were getting anything on Wednesday, because, Wednesday, February 17th was my wedding anniversary. And I was like, well, are we going to get anything on Wheel of Time Wednesday for a wedding anniversary? And they replied back to me and they said they're not really saying it's a wedding anniversary gift, but we will get something redacted for it, or along that way. So the way they worded it made me start thinking, that's really strange. And then the next day we got Matt's dagger reveal. But the way they worded that tweet and the way they've talked about it since then in other tweets on Twitter have basically had the whole fandom abuzz with something old, something new, something borrowed. So something old was Tam's sword. It's ancient. Something new was Tom's guitar. It was something that's not in the books. They changed. Something borrowed was Matt's dagger because he did steal it. The next word of that is what? Something blue, right? So Sarah Nakamura kind of put fuel to the fire a few days ago when she posted this in her Instagram story. Now, for those of you who don't know who Sarah is the book consultant for the show. So essentially, she is there to make sure the writer's room stays on track and doesn't deviate too far from the books. Been mentioned a couple times in the interviews where they have had knockdown, drag-out fights with her, where she said, no, you cannot change this certain thing because of all of these reasons. She's the only person in the world that I know has read the books more than me, and she's also the biggest Wheel of Time fan I know, so she is basically holding them to account for a lot of this stuff, anything she can do. So when she posts something, especially something that people can kind of construe to be associated with the show, people dissect it. Now, we had already all, as a fandom, not just myself, but a whole bunch of people, thought that we're going to get something blue this coming week, and then she posts this, and we're all like, we're definitely getting something blue. So what could that something be? Now, I'm going to warn you here for a second. I'm going to show you an image. Now, this image has been out for quite some time, probably over a year now, so it is not anything new. It's been on Reddit, it's been on Facebook, it's been on Twitter, it's been on Instagram, it's been everywhere, and I did a full-on video about it probably close to a year ago, if you want to look back at our first look at Moraine. Now, my guess is that we're going to see something blue this week as being Rosamund Pike in full costume. That's my guess. We'll see a set picture of her in costume. And I really hope we do, because I think that would be really cool. Or maybe even a clip of her. That would be even more cool. But about a year ago, we got this image. And again, if you don't want to see the image, click away now and just finish the video, because we're going to talk about it till the end of the video. We had this. Now, this is heavily cropped, of course, but it is Moraine, Rosamund Pike in costume on set from a long time ago. It was a leaked image. It was covered pretty much everywhere. But it gave us our first real look at what we think could be any character in costume at this point. And it was really, really cool to see. So I'm hoping we'll get to see something akin to this, only much more so. Something HD, something official from Amazon Prime on Wednesday. So again, if you don't follow them on Twitter, go follow them on Twitter right now. Like right now. And then around 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays, usually when they drop Wheel of Time on Prime News for What Wednesday, the first Wednesday of every month, we should see something. Sometimes there have been occasions where it's not the first Wednesday, it's the second or the third, depending on world events or things that are going on or their own internal schedule. But usually one Wednesday a month we get something. And I really do think that this week we're going to see Moraine in costume, which makes me pretty happy. All right. All that being said, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. This week, are we getting something blue like Sarah hinted at and Wheel of Time on Prime kind of hinted at with the rhyming scheme over the last few weeks on Twitter? Are we going to see Moraine in costume? Are we going to see something completely different? Or are they going to just pull the rug out from underneath us and give us nothing? I mean, that's possible too. It's happened a few months in a row where sometimes we don't get anything from them. Either way, let me know what you think in the comments down below. And thank you so much for sticking with me here to the very end. Here's to many more.